All righty, great, thank you. Welcome to you all who are joining us tonight and anyone who will be joining us later on their own. My name is Nicole and I work in the Office of Pre-Collegiate Outreach Programs, and we are super excited tonight that you are joining us along with Heidi Morton, who is the Assistant Director of Career Services Assessment and Inclusion at WPI's Career Development Center. I know we've had a lot of great workshops from the Career Development Center, and this one is sure to offer you some great insight and something to think about as Heidi kind of brings you through the process of identifying what your career personality looks like and what that could mean to you in the future. So we are really happy to have her here. We're happy that you guys are joining us, and I am going to disappear and let Heidi share with you. Thanks.
All right, hello everyone. So as Nicole mentioned, I am Heidi. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I work at the Career Development Center. So what we're gonna talk a little bit today is, yes, career exploration. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bring up my screen, start my PowerPoint. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about career exploration and some things that you can do to start thinking about careers of interest for you now and investigating those a little bit. So to start us out with, I would love for you all to just kind of jot down, you know, on your device, if you have pen and paper, but think about a couple of things for each of these 3 prompts I have listed here. So jobs you think you would be interested in, your favorite subjects in school, and your favorite activities or hobbies outside of it. And I'll give you a minute or 2 for that. Okay, so you've probably jotted down some ideas. If you're still thinking about something, that's okay. Continue to think about that, and if something comes to you, just jot it down later. All right. So what we're going to be thinking and talking about today is career interest theory, which was created by John Holland, who's a career theorist. So John Holland came up with these 6 different personality types, so career personality types. Everyone is a combination of types, so there isn't one specific type for any given person. I told Nicole earlier that I'm an ISA, and that will make sense to you in a moment. So you're a combination of types. We usually think about what are your top 3 career personalities and go from there in terms of thinking about what might be some good career matches to at least get you exploring and start exploring some careers of interest. So when you take the assessment, and you're gonna take one, I have one provided that's free. It's gonna think about activities, jobs, environments that we like and in which we feel most comfortable. And so all of that combines in giving you those matches for your types. It's not just, I like to do this. It's also thinking a little bit about some of the environment pieces of the work that we like to do too. So job and environment match personality type. And that increases the likelihood of happiness and satisfaction. That was Holland theory, that if you think about these things and you pick a career based on that personality type, your predominant personality types, you'd be much more likely to be happy in your career. So, the RISEC assessment. All right. So we have this link here. It's my next move. I'm just gonna show it to you a little bit, and kind See the address up there. I'm going to show it to you and then I can drop it in the chat as well. So I'll pop that in there in a moment just to kind of take you through what it's going to be like a little bit at first. So it's an interest profiler. And as you go through, there's going to be 60 questions you're going to answer. And you're just going to think about strongly dislike, dislike, unsure, like, strongly like, with each of the prompts given to you, or a brief description of like a task or a work environment. One of the things that I definitely want to echo that Onet shares is try not to overthink it. And try not to think too much about if you have the education or training to actually do that. There will be a lot of things where, yeah, you won't have the education or training to do that, at least not yet. And that is absolutely fine. It's just gauging, but does that sound interesting to you and like something you would want to explore? And it's also encouraged, try not to think too much about, well, how much will that pay, or other factors like that. Really just focus on, does this sound like something I would like or dislike? So there's no right or wrong answers because we are all different and we're all multifaceted. And it's just about learning about your interests. So when you get to the screen, it's going to look like this. And, you know, strongly dislike, strongly like, the range in between, and you'll just go through and kind of mark each of those. All right. So let me just pull up the chat for a moment. I'm going to drop this link for you in case you didn't get that. And just go to that link. I'm going to give you, it's 60 questions. Like I said, try not to overthink it too much. So hopefully it won't take you too long to get through those, but I'm going to give you a few minutes. And then if you all could just share in the chat when you're done and you have your results, and then you can go from there. Nicole, you took it too.
I did. Interesting. I had to think about a couple of those things.
Yeah, sometimes, you're like, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
It's okay to answer the unsures. Okay, so other folks, are folks still taking it? If you just want to pop it in the chat, if you are done, if you have your top 3 letters, just so we know. Okay, Catherine, we're finished. Great. And if you want to put your top 3 letters in the chat as well, just so I can see what we have, that would be awesome. Okay, we have AIC, IRC, awesome. Okay. Some investigative, some artistic, some IRS, great. So pretty strong investigative in there. I'm not totally surprised by that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So as I note here, those top 3 letters, that is your Holland code. If you have a tie, that's okay. The order doesn't really matter. It doesn't look like anyone had a tie because you just gave me straight 3-letter codes. But if at any point you take that, or someone is watching later and takes that assessment and you have a tie, it's okay. You can decide which one you think goes first after you kind of read about them a little bit. If you don't agree, which I definitely is something I tell people, it is okay to change your order. Oh, IAS. Okay. Captain was IAS, not IRS. It's okay to change your codes if you don't agree as we go through. If you have a moment where you're like, I actually don't think investigative is my top, that doesn't feel right, I feel like this other thing is, or whatever the case may be, that is okay. It is, after all, designed to kind of assess your interests. So if something sounds more interesting to you, it's okay to recognize that. So, all right. So the codes, they're realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. They all have different focus points. We all have, I would say we all have these to varying degrees. It's just that some of these are higher or a stronger match for us than others. So that's why we focus on just the top 3 letters that you have in the order. And this is also why it's called RISA. All right, so realistic, and we had some R's in there. So realistic, they're considered the doers. These are folks who tend to like a lot of work with what I would say a physical kind of component, very kind of hands-on sort of work. So they tend to have a lot of mechanical or even athletic ability. These are people who like to work with things, so machines, tools, etc. It's not surprising that I see a lot of people who have an R somewhere in their top 3 letters working at a STEM school. I think all the letters actually have different ways that they play into STEM, but this is one that seems very obvious to a lot of people. So that's the realistic. Those doers, again, tend to be kind of straightforward, hands-on, practical. They like things that are tangible, if you will. And then you have investigative. So I mentioned before I was an ISA, so investigative is my top code. This is people who like to observe, learn, investigate, analyze, research, all of that. Usually tend to like science and math, especially natural sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, math. Those are all things that tend to be of high interest to investigators. these are folks who tend to be analytical. They can be a little bit more reserved, a little more, as it says, scholarly. And they can sometimes be a little bit in some of the less tangible and a little bit in some of the ideas realm as well. Artistic. So these are our creators, and I saw an A in there, so, or one or two A's, folks that had A's. So there are creators, so innovative folks, definitely more comfortable with unstructured kind of working situations, using their imagination and thinking outside the box, and are folks that tend to be creative, expressive. There's definitely a lot of places where I see this coming out at WPI, not only in our majors, but just in general in our student body and some of the things that they're interested in. IMGB is one that definitely comes to mind as definitely having some types that have a pretty high A preference. So then there's social. So these are the helpers, people who really like to work with others, teaching, training, folks who tend to be very compassionate. They really want to do something of service to humanity. So a lot of strong S types who usually end up seeking out careers related to education, medicine can definitely be a big one, especially if you combine, say, something like the I and the S. Psychology, so fields like those are usually pretty popular with the social. Enterprising, your persuaders. These are folks who can be a bit entrepreneurial. These are folks who also like to work with people, but it has a little bit of a different flavor to it than the socials, who like to tend to kind of tend more towards helping professions, and persuaders tend more into professions where they can influence and persuade people. So they can be very adventurous, very outgoing, very energetic. And then we have our conventional, the organizers. So definitely people who like structure, people who like data, numbers. They tend to be seen as careful, organized, following the rules, might be a little better suited for working at a desk, working in the office, that sort of environment. So those are our polling codes. So now that we've gone through them a little bit, again, like I said, if anyone's sort of thinking about what their results were and feeling like, actually I feel more like my codes should look like this, that's okay. You can make that decision. That is A-okay. All right. So your interest code. So now that you know what that code means, again, decide if your letters sound accurate. Fix any ties or change any code so that it best describes you. So you can think about that for a moment. And then just some other things to think about. The order doesn't matter too much. And you don't even need to have a career that you're interested in match all three of those in order for it to be a good fit for you. So my career is one that really aligns very well with my S, because I mentioned I'm an ISA. Not as much with the A, a little bit with the I. I've worked it in. I do like to analyze data and think about what this means, and explore trends and things like that. So a lot of times you might find that there might be a career that really appeals to one particular aspect of that career personality in those top three letters, but you might see some ways in which you still get a little bit of your other top three letters in there as well. Okay, so now that we have our code and we're thinking about, where our interests sort of most lie, let's explore. So ONET, which is actually where you took the free assessment, they maintain a database of occupations that you can actually sort through by Holland code. So there's the link, which again, I will drop into our chat. And so what we're gonna do is when we go to it, we're gonna start by selecting our top interests, and then you can add in your second and third interests as you drop this into our chat for everyone. Okay, so there is the link in chat. Go ahead and navigate to ONET. And so, as I mentioned, you can see that I've played around with it. I'm investigative, so I'm going to start with the I. And if I'm just doing the I, there are 82 occupations displayed. Awesome. And there's a lot of different things. That is something you're definitely going to see. It's going to give you a lot of different options. And then you'll notice some of these little icons with them. So the little sun means there's a bright outlook. The little leaf means it's a green career. So, I'm not doing bicycle repair. It could be fun. But as I go through, I can kind of look and see, oh, well, what matches kind of with the eyes. We see some things like, oh, therapists, nurses, makes sense, environmental science, water resource specialists, a lot of things related to science, but some other stuff in there as well. So, okay, and those are sort of the top careers that they're giving me here. So I can go and add in some of my other letters. So I can think about, well, what happens if I add in my S in conjunction with my I? And then I can go through and kind of see, and I'm starting to see definitely a lot more. I'm seeing therapists, I'm seeing nurses. So I'm seeing a lot more leaning towards health careers, both physical and mental health careers, which I get a lot. Anytime I do any kind of career assessment, it usually tells me I should be a psychologist or I should be doing some kind of healthcare. Neither of which I'm really doing, but that's okay. I do very much like working in higher ed, so I end up okay. Oh, and look, education is gonna kind of make an appearance. So then, as I see something that I might be really interested in, too bad wildlife biology isn't showing up here. That's my favorite go-to of just picking a career at random. A wildlife biologist. I'm going to go to the nurse midwife. So if I click on it, it's going to give me a summary and give me a bit of an overview of that career so that, again, I can start to explore a little bit. So as I'm putting in my code and I'm seeing the matches, I'll start to see things that might strike a chord with me, it might resonate with me, and then I can go in and explore them a little bit more. So I will go through, it's giving me, I can see technology and skills, I see tasks, here's a little summary, very high level of what a nurse midwife would do. So I can go through, things I need to have knowledge of. Again, it's kind of breaking down those skills and abilities. It's going to tell me about work activities, which can actually be really helpful to get some of that information because it might be something where I might not automatically think about like getting information, but obviously that makes sense. some detailed work activities, work contacts. So this is really great. So like face-to-face discussions, 97% of respondents said every day. So nurse midwives kind of filled out the survey from ONET. 97% of them are saying that they're having face-to-face discussions every day. Physical proximity, very close. That makes sense, 92%. So you can even kind of get a feel of like, well, what does this work environment feel like? So I'm definitely seeing with this work career I was interested in, I'm going to be working very closely with other people. I don't know that that's surprising, but there are definitely some times where you might see some information there that could be a little surprising to you. So again, we can just kind of go through, and this is where it really starts to get helpful too, is it'll tell me the kind of education that I might want to think about for this career. And again, this is based off of respondents. So it's respondents telling us what their educational level is. So 78% have a master's degree. Yes, absolutely. And then we see 11% post-master's certificate and 5% have a post-baccalaureate certificate. So not a post-baccalaureate certificate, for instance, not a full degree, but they finished their bachelor's degree and then they got a certificate. They finished their master's and then they got another certificate in something that maybe wasn't a full degree, but some specialized courses. Okay. So this breaks down, you know, I already knew that I was getting this based off my interest, so I'll kind of skip over that. It'll tell me work styles, work values, and related occupations. So other things that I might potentially want to consider. And then it'll give me some wage and employment trends. So what's the median wage, hourly and annual, and I can put in different locations to see, well, what would might I expect if I were going to be a nurse midwife in, say, Chicago versus like Cleveland. I actually have a friend who was a midwife who worked in Chicago and then moved to Cleveland. All right. And so that's a little bit of that overview that ONET will give you on your career matches. So, and if I'm super interested, I can even put in my third match and kind of go and see what I get that will match with all three. So I get 26 occupations. So this is really narrowing it down quite a bit. I tend to take an approach of cast your net wide to begin with. Start with your first letter. You might even, rather than starting with, say, so I start with investigative, I could actually just then go and switch my first to be social and just look to just see social. And then start doing combinations. So do different combinations of your letters, that's okay. Just to see what are some of those different matches are, because to have an occupation that you will enjoy and have a career that you will enjoy and can find fulfilling, it doesn't have to be a strong match with all three of the letters. It could be a strong match or a reasonably good match with one or a combination of them. So play around with it a little bit. Especially because while I put in all three, I don't think I would be very happy as a music therapist. I play not a single instrument. So, you know, that's also where I tell people it's going to give you a lot of matches and they are not all going to be things you're interested in. And that is absolutely okay. Sometimes if you're seeing things, you're like, oh, I'm not super interested in these. It can still give you ideas like, well, I wonder why, and oh, I can understand why. So I tell people whenever I do these, I get a lot of things related to psychology, a lot of things related to biology and health. I don't do either of those, but I absolutely understand why it's giving me those results. And in a different life, I could be in a career in one of those areas and probably be pretty happy. I'm also happy in the career that I chose. So I think one of the things that is helpful too is understanding there's no one right career for anyone. It's just a matter of you kind of doing some exploration, thinking about what might be some good options for you, and then just making choices that work best with your needs and wants. All right, so that is the Interest Explorer there with ONET. Hopefully you are seeing some great things in there and finding some careers that sound interesting. Obviously, that's one place to start and start exploring some careers. Once you start seeing some things that look interesting, going and finding more information about that career. So it could, I mean, it could be Googling it, right? Other things to start thinking about might even be, well, do I know anyone, any, you know, family members, friends of family, neighbors, community members who might be in that career or a similar career? Or start talking about your interests with, again, your family, friends of family, community members, etc. Your teachers about careers that sound interesting to you, because it can surprise you who people might know. And so if you kind of let them know careers that are of interest, you know, you could have your English teacher, you know, you could be like, hey, I want to go work at JPL someday. And your English teacher could be like, well, I know someone who works at JPL. So start talking to folks in your life about your career interests. And if people, you know, if you are aware of people who are in those fields or other people are, think about maybe setting up a time to chat with those people, doing what we call an informational interview, to talk to them about the work they do and get a little bit of an inside picture, a little, if you will, to kind of learn a little bit more about that career. Okay. So now let's open it up to questions. It is 6:42, so we are great on time. Yeah, let's ask some questions. And Nicole, since we have 3 folks in here, do you want to use the chat feature, or are you okay?
You know what, I will, for the sake of that, I will turn off the recording, and then we can continue our conversations. But I think that was a lot of awesome information that you shared. And I think the more you can explore different opportunities, now the better you'll be prepared. And I love the idea of setting up an informational interview with someone just to learn more about what they do. And you know what, that's a great networking for planting seeds. So, so thank you for sharing all of that. And we will turn off our recording.